Stillness is Power. Stop Chasing, Start Being. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. The world is screaming. Scroll faster. Hustle harder. Speak louder. As if the louder you are, the more real you become. But what if the opposite is true? What if real power doesn't come from being seen first, but from seeing clearly? What if your deepest strength isn't in how much you push, but in how deeply you pause? We've made motion our idol. Busyness is our badge. Restlessness is our religion. And in the noise, we've mistaken chaos for growth, pace for purpose. Stillness has become suspect. A sign of laziness. Or worse, irrelevance. But stillness is not the absence of life. It's the container for it. It's not stopping the river, it's stepping into its current without thrashing. As philosopher Blaise Pascal once wrote, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. The truth is, stillness is not a retreat, it's a return. A return to sanity. To center. To source. Where power is not forced, but remembered. This book is not about doing less for the sake of minimalism. It's about reclaiming your presence. It's about moving from reactive to rooted. It's about learning how to let the noise pass, and listen for what's actually true beneath it. Stillness is not a luxury. It's survival. It's a strategy. It's strength. And those who master it will not fall behind. They'll rise quietly, steadily, unshakably. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Addiction to Motion. You wake up and check your phone before you even breathe. Notifications, updates, reminders. Before your feet hit the floor, the race has begun. You scroll while brushing your teeth, respond to emails during breakfast, schedule meetings in traffic, and collapse into bed wondering where the day went. The world claps for your hustle, but your soul whispers something else. Is this it? We've been conditioned to equate movement with meaning. The more we do, the more we believe we are. Productivity becomes identity. If we're not achieving, we fear we're disappearing. So we chase status, success, significance, hoping that one more step, one more project, one more breakthrough will finally bring the peace we've postponed. But it doesn't. It never does. There's a term in psychology: hypervigilance. It's the state of being constantly alert, scanning for danger. Many live this way not because of trauma, but because of culture. The world teaches us to be hypervigilant about opportunity, relevance, and competition. Stillness, in this paradigm, looks like weakness. Slowing down looks like falling behind. But motion is not always progress. Hamsters run furiously in wheels and never leave the cage. You can be exhausted and still stuck. You can be impressive and still lost. The addiction to motion isn't just about external achievement, it's about internal avoidance. Silence terrifies us because it strips away distraction. In stillness, we're forced to face the parts of ourselves we'd rather outrun. The doubts, the grief, the questions with no quick answer. So we keep moving, hoping noise will drown them out. But the truth is this: what you're running from may hold the very wisdom you're chasing. Stillness reveals. It strips away pretense. It calls your attention inward, where clarity lives. The most important decisions in history weren't made in chaos, they were made in quiet. Think of the scientist in a dim lab, the monk in meditation, the leader staring out a window. It's not always the roar that shapes the world. Often, it's the pause. Consider the bamboo tree. It spends years growing underground before anything appears above the surface. When it finally breaks through, it can grow nearly 90 feet in weeks. Stillness is not stagnation, it is preparation. The power you admire in others was often formed in unseen seasons of still, quiet becoming. Even technology mirrors this. Computers freeze not from inactivity but from overload. Systems crash when too many run at once. The solution? A reset. A pause. The system needs stillness to function again. So do you. The great paradox is this: you are not what you chase. The more you cling to motion for meaning, the more meaning slips through your fingers. But when you pause, when you step back and allow yourself to just be, you begin to hear again. Think again. Feel again. You remember that your worth is not tied to your pace. That being alive is not a performance. That rest is not a reward for finishing, but a rhythm for living. The addiction to motion is real. But it can be broken. Not by doing more, but by choosing less. Choosing presence over pressure. Breath over broadcast. Depth over display. You don't have to outrun your life. You can return to it. One still moment at a time. Constant motion does not equal growth. It often masks fear and avoidance. Stillness isn't weakness, it's a reset that reveals clarity. You can choose presence without falling behind. Where in your life are you moving fast to avoid something deeper? Take 5 uninterrupted minutes today. No phone. No task. Just sit and notice what rises. Listen without fixing. Chapter 2: The Myth of Falling Behind. There's a quiet panic that hums beneath modern life, the fear that everyone else is getting ahead while you're standing still. It's why we multitask rest. Why we check emails at red lights. Why even our vacations feel like performance reviews for social media. The myth is clear: if you're not constantly advancing, you're falling behind. But behind what? This fear doesn't come from truth. It comes from illusion, one carefully constructed by algorithms, advertising, and cultural conditioning. You're shown curated success, milestone after milestone, highlight after highlight. So you compare your life to a montage of filtered realities and conclude that you must accelerate. Not because you want to, but because you're afraid not to. Progress, however, is not linear. It's not uniform. And it's certainly not a race. A tree and a cloud exist on different timelines, but both belong in the sky. Measuring your path by someone else's pace is like judging a poem by how fast it ends. Speed is not the standard. Meaning is. Stillness isn't the enemy of growth, it's often the birthplace of it. Think of soil before the bloom, winter before spring, silence before the music starts. The most important transitions in nature are marked by stillness, not motion. Seeds don't sprout by force. They yield to the process. And so must we. But we've been taught to chase, not trust. So even when we're tired, we push. Even when we're unsure, we charge forward. Slowing down feels like surrender. Rest feels irresponsible. But these are the very lies that keep us trapped in cycles of burnout and confusion. A Stanford study found that people in a forced idle state, when waiting unexpectedly, actually came up with more creative solutions than those under pressure. Stillness activated deeper problem-solving, richer imagination. In slowing down, they didn't fall behind, they discovered more. The myth of falling behind only holds power when you forget your path is your own. You are not on anyone else's timeline. You're not late. You're not early. You are exactly where you are meant to be to learn what you must learn now. And the more you align with that truth, the less frantic your life becomes. Stillness isn't just about pausing movement, it's about rejecting false urgency. It's recognizing when the race you're running doesn't lead where you want to go. It's having the courage to stop, step aside, and ask, is this pace aligned with my purpose, or just my panic? Asterisk. Remember the lion. It does not run because the gazelles are moving. It runs only when necessary. Its power is not in constant activity, it's in intentionality. So much of your energy is wasted reacting, responding, rushing to stay caught up with something undefined. But there is nothing behind you. There is only the moment you're in. And it's enough. The idea that life is passing you by unless you're constantly moving is a distortion. Life is not something to keep up with, it's something to meet, to engage, to feel fully. When you slow down, you begin to notice again the texture of a moment, the wisdom in your body, the quiet knowing in your spirit. These are not signs of falling behind. They are signs of finally arriving. You are not late to your own life. You never were. The fear of falling behind is rooted in illusion, not truth. Stillness creates space for clarity, creativity, and alignment. You're not on a universal clock, your path unfolds on its own time. Where have you been rushing because you fear you're not ahead enough? Pause today and write down 3 areas of your life where slowing down might bring more depth and speed. Chapter 3: Noise is not knowledge. We live in a world where access to information is limitless, and so is the overwhelm. Podcasts play while driving. News updates flash across every screen. Opinions flood your feed before you've had your first sip of coffee. You're constantly consuming, yet rarely digesting. Surrounded by data, but starving for wisdom. The world teaches that the more you know, the more you're worth. So we chase content. We fill every gap with noise, scrolling, streaming, searching, as if silence means ignorance. But knowledge is not measured by how much you consume. It's revealed by how deeply you understand. Noise mimics urgency. It demands your attention but rarely deserves it. And the more noise you let in, the harder it becomes to hear yourself. You begin to mistake reaction for awareness. Speed for intelligence. The loudest idea becomes the most convincing, even if it's hollow. Think of a glass of muddy water. As long as it's stirred, it stays cloudy. But the moment it sits still, clarity begins. The sediment settles, and what's true becomes visible. Your mind works the same way. Constant stimulation doesn't sharpen you, it scatters you. The brilliance you're looking for doesn't rise in chaos. It emerges when the water's calm. A study by the University of California found that excessive information input reduces our capacity for creative thought and decision-making. In other words, too much input creates mental paralysis. Not because we lack intelligence, but because our cognitive bandwidth is cluttered. Stillness clears the channel. There's a reason why some of history's greatest thinkers were also committed walkers, meditators, or nature observers. They knew that to hear truth, you often have to silence everything else. Einstein credited his best ideas not to labs, but to quiet walks. The mind, given space, expands. Forced to run endlessly, it fragments. Noise also hides insecurity. If you're unsure of your worth, you'll reach for more input, books, courses, comment sections, not to grow, but to prove something to yourself. But wisdom doesn't shout. It whispers. And you can't hear it when the volume is always maxed out. There's a difference between learning and leaning. Learning fills the mind. Leaning grounds it. One gathers facts. The other fosters understanding. Stillness allows you to lean into what you already know, to trust your inner compass instead of outsourcing every answer. Think of the ocean. Its surface is loud, waves crashing, wind whipping. But dive beneath, even just a few feet, and there is stillness. Depth is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. The deeper you go, the more silent it becomes. That's what stillness offers you, access to your depth. Information can enhance your life, but only if it flows through a filter of discernment. Without stillness, that filter weakens. You end up absorbing instead of choosing, reacting instead of reflecting. And eventually, you forget what your own voice sounds like beneath the echo. The goal is not ignorance. The goal is intention. Stillness doesn't ask you to retreat from the world. It invites you to meet it on your terms. To decide what enters your mind. To be the gatekeeper of your attention. In that sovereignty, wisdom begins. You don't need more noise to know more. You need more silence to know what matters. Constant noise limits clarity, creativity, and true understanding. Stillness allows scattered information to settle into wisdom. The deeper you go within, the quieter and more insightful life becomes. Where has too much input distracted you from your own knowing? Spend 30 minutes today without external input, no music, no podcasts, no scrolling. Let your own thoughts rise. Chapter 4: Resisting the Urge to React. Something happens. A message arrives. A headline flashes. A comment stings. And before you even register the moment, you're already reacting. Emotion surges, fingers type, decisions are made. All in seconds. Fast, instinctive, unfiltered. But speed is not clarity, and reaction is not response. We live in an age of immediacy. Opinions are expected instantly. Emotions are broadcasted before they're processed. There's little room to pause, to breathe, to choose. The world rewards the quick, not the wise. but the cost is high. When reaction becomes your default, you give away your power. You move from center to chaos, from choice to compulsion. Stillness is the antidote. It interrupts the chain. It introduces space between stimulus and action. That space is where discernment lives. It's where you decide whether the fire needs fuel, or whether it needs to burn out on its own. Without that pause, everything becomes a threat. Every disagreement feels personal. Every silence feels like rejection. Every delay feels like disrespect. But not everything requires a response. Not every situation is worthy of your energy. Sometimes silence is strategy. Sometimes stillness is self-respect. The tree doesn't tremble at every gust of wind. It bends when necessary, but it doesn't uproot itself just to prove it's paying attention. Neuroscience backs this. The amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, reacts in milliseconds. But the prefrontal cortex, responsible for reason and perspective, needs time. When you pause, even briefly, you shift from primitive reflex to conscious response. You move from survival mode to leadership. And leadership isn't just for others, it's for how you lead yourself. The world will offer you endless bait. Arguments to enter. Drama to digest. Offenses to adopt. But stillness allows you to ask, is this mine to carry? Reactivity says yes to everything. Stillness teaches you to choose. Consider a martial artist. Their strength isn't in constant attack. It's in timing, restraint, and awareness. They wait, read the room, conserve energy. Their stillness is not weakness, it's strategy. The same is true for you. The power is not in always striking. It's in knowing when not to. Reaction is often rooted in fear of being misunderstood, overlooked, dismissed. So we speak too soon, act too fast, defend too loudly. But fear clouds judgment. It turns minor moments into major offenses. Stillness shrinks those distortions. It clears the fog. It lets you see the moment for what it is, not what your fear paints it to be. In relationships, stillness prevents escalation. It turns potential explosions into moments of empathy. In work, it creates clarity where chaos could thrive. In your inner world, it brings coherence to confusion. The pause becomes a practice. A micro-moment that rewires your life from reactivity to rootedness. You don't have to meet every energy that comes your way. You don't have to match intensity with intensity. True power is being able to feel the heat and not lose your cool. It's responding with intention, not impulse. It's realizing that peace is not passive, it's a practiced form of strength. The next time the urge to react hits, do nothing at first. Breathe. Observe. Let the storm pass through you without becoming it. In that space, you'll find something deeper than reaction. You'll find response. And more than that, you'll find freedom. Reactivity is a reflex. Response is a choice rooted in stillness. Pausing activates clarity, reason, and emotional maturity. Not everything demands your energy. Stillness helps you discern what does. When was the last time a reaction cost you peace that stillness could have protected? Today, when something triggers you, pause for 10 seconds before responding. Let your breath lead, not your impulse. Chapter 5: The Wisdom of Waiting. There is a kind of strength that doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It doesn't force results before their time. This strength wears the face of patience. And patience, when rooted in stillness, becomes wisdom. But in a culture addicted to instant gratification, waiting feels like weakness. We've been taught that if it's not happening now, it's not happening at all. That slow means stagnant. That pauses mean problems. So we push. We chase. We intervene when we should observe. And in doing so, we often delay the very outcomes we're desperate to create. Waiting is not wasted time. It is sacred space. It's the in-between where real transformation begins. Just as fruit ripens only in season, life unfolds on its own timeline. Rushing it doesn't yield more, it ruins what's not yet ready. The butterfly cannot be pulled from the cocoon. The seed cannot be cracked open to accelerate the bloom. There is a rhythm to everything, and stillness teaches you how to hear it. Think of the archer. The power is not in releasing the arrow, but in the draw, the tension, the stillness before the flight. Without that pause, the shot lacks force. The same is true for your decisions, your growth, your vision. Power builds in the waiting. There is also revelation in waiting. Things you couldn't see while running become visible when you stop. Motivations surface. Emotions settle. Priorities clarify. When you wait with awareness, you stop reacting and start perceiving. And in that clarity, better choices rise, choices not born from urgency, but from understanding. Research shows that people who wait before making decisions tend to report higher satisfaction and lower regret. Why? Because the pause gives them time to align with their values, not just their impulses. Waiting is not a passive stall. It's an active sorting, a conscious choosing, a sacred restraint. But waiting is uncomfortable. It confronts your control. It exposes your desire to manipulate outcomes. It challenges your faith in timing, in truth, in yourself. Stillness doesn't remove the discomfort. It teaches you how to hold it without collapsing, how to breathe inside the tension, how to trust that what is meant for you cannot be missed, and what is not meant for you cannot be forced. Even in nature, delay serves a purpose. The desert doesn't bloom every season, but when it does, it's unforgettable. The moon doesn't rush to be full, it follows a cycle. Your life, too, has a cadence. Honor it. You are not behind. You are not stuck. You are being prepared. Waiting refines you. It shapes your character in quiet ways. It strips away ego, surfaces patience, grows endurance. It teaches you how to sit with longing without grabbing for a substitute. And in doing so, it readies you, not just for the outcome, but for the weight of receiving it well. Not every door needs to be kicked open. Some open simply because you had the courage to wait long enough to be invited in. Stillness is that courage. The courage to stop meddling. The courage to hold space. The courage to let something unfold without your fingerprints all over it. There's wisdom in the wait. Not because you're doing nothing, but because you're doing the hardest thing of all, surrendering control while holding expectation. That is not weakness. That is power. Waiting is not inactivity, it's intentional space where clarity and strength grow. Stillness reveals timing, rushing distorts outcomes. Wisdom often arrives only after the urge to force has been resisted. Where in your life are you pushing for answers instead of allowing clarity to rise? Identify one area where you feel urgency. Choose today to pause, observe, and let stillness guide your next step. Chapter 6. Letting go of the need to prove. The need to prove yourself is subtle but exhausting. It hides in your achievements, disguises itself as ambition, and whispers that you must keep doing more just to be enough. Without realizing it, you begin living on a stage, performing for approval that never fully satisfies. You measure your worth by reactions, likes, promotions, compliments, results. You become fluent in the language of comparison. If others are ahead, you must catch up. If others are watching, you must impress. The performance becomes automatic, and stillness feels like irrelevance. But proving is a race with no finish line. Even when you win, the applause fades. And then the chase begins again. The cost? Your peace, your clarity, your authenticity. You become so busy being who you think you should be that you forget who you actually are. Stillness strips away the performance. It invites you off the stage. It asks the question most people avoid: who are you when no one's watching? The answer isn't found in activity or accolades. It's found in being, undistracted, unfiltered, unforced. Letting go of the need to prove doesn't mean you lose drive. It means your drive becomes rooted in purpose, not pressure. You no longer act to be seen, you act because it's right. You speak not to impress, but to express truth. You move not to validate your existence, but to live from it. Psychologist Carl Rogers once wrote that the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. Stillness creates the space for that acceptance. Not as a resignation, but as a return. You stop hustling for worth and start anchoring in it. There's a quiet power in those who have nothing to prove. They don't posture. They don't perform. They show up, fully present, unattached to perception. Their energy speaks louder than their words. Their confidence isn't loud, it's settled. Because it's not borrowed from applause. It's born from alignment. Letting go of proving also frees your creativity. When you're performing, you're editing yourself before you even begin. You silence the original thought. You filter the true idea. You choose what's acceptable over what's authentic. But in stillness, creativity breathes again. Risk returns. Play reemerges. And in that sacred space, originality lives. This doesn't mean you stop achieving. It means achievement no longer owns you. You can succeed without being enslaved to success. You can create without craving credit. You can rise without climbing over your own soul to do it. The need to prove thrives in noise, external expectations, internal insecurity. Stillness quiets both. It reminds you that you have nothing to earn. You are not behind. You are not in competition. You are not here to perform. You are here to live, fully, freely, honestly. To let go of proving is to reclaim your energy. It's to stop asking, "Am I enough?" and start living as if you already are. That shift changes everything. It turns striving into serenity. It turns chasing into choosing. It turns fear into freedom. You don't need to prove your worth. You need to live from it. Let stillness be the proof, not of your status, but of your strength. The need to prove drains peace, distorts purpose, and silences authenticity. Stillness helps you shift from performing for approval to acting from alignment. True confidence isn't loud, it's grounded in the absence of needing validation. Where in your life are you acting from the need to be seen rather than from inner truth? Identify one task you've been doing to gain approval. Pause. Reconnect with why it matters, and if it even still does. Chapter 7: Presence over Performance. You're in the room, but your mind is on the next meeting. You're with your loved ones, but your attention is on your phone. You're doing the thing, but thinking about the next thing. Always leaning forward, always reaching, always slightly ahead of yourself. That's not living. That's performing. And the cost is your presence. Presence is the art of being fully where you are. Not halfway. Not rehearsing your next line. Not strategizing the next move. Just here. Breathing. Sensing. Engaged. It sounds simple, but in a distracted world, presence is radical. Because presence says this moment is enough. Performance, on the other hand, is about crafting impressions. It's playing a role, often one that you didn't consciously choose. It's exhausting, even when it works. Because you can't truly connect when you're trying to control how you're perceived. You're not in the moment, you're above it, around it, managing it. That disconnect creates anxiety. It breathes inauthenticity. It hollows out your joy. Stillness invites presence. It interrupts the performance, and invites you back into your body, your breath, your senses. It reminds you that this moment doesn't need to be improved, it needs to be inhabited. Presence is not passive. It's fiercely active. It requires attention, surrender, and a kind of reverence for the now. A study from Harvard found that people are less happy when their minds are wandering, even if what they're thinking about is pleasant. The conclusion was clear: a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. Presence, not fantasy, breeds contentment. But presence doesn't happen by accident. It must be chosen. Again and again. You won't drift into presence. The world is too loud, too fast, too demanding. You must anchor yourself to it. That's what stillness trains you for. The pause. The return. The breathe between thoughts that brings you back to what's real. Think of a master craftsman. They're not rushing through their work to get to the next project. They are absorbed. Every motion deliberate. Every detail honored. Not because they're trying to impress, but because they're fully there. That's presence. Not the spotlight, but the sacred focus of being immersed in what matters. When you live in presence, time changes. Moments stretch. Conversations deepen. Work becomes meaningful, not just manageable. You stop watching life like a highlight reel and start experiencing it frame by frame. This is not poetic fluff. It's a shift that touches everything: your relationships, your health, your creativity, your peace. Performance will always tempt you. It promises applause, attention, approval. But it's a hungry ghost. No matter how much you feed it, it wants more. Presence feeds you instead. It nourishes from within. It replaces the anxiety of impression with the peace of connection. Stillness doesn't mean withdrawing from life. It means entering it more fully. When you're no longer split between past regrets and future planning, you become whole in the now. And wholeness is where wisdom lives. It's where joy enters. It's where you meet your life, not your imagined version of it, but the raw, beautiful, unscripted reality of it. You don't need a bigger stage. You need a deeper seat in the moment you're already in. Presence is not about doing more, it's about being more where you already are. This is the power of stillness. Not to slow your life down, but to call your soul forward. Presence is the antidote to performance. It brings wholeness to the moment. Stillness teaches you to inhabit the now instead of performing for later. Living with presence transforms ordinary life into meaningful experience. Where are you performing instead of participating? During your next conversation, put your phone away, listen fully, and notice how it changes the depth of connection. Chapter 8: The Strength of Restraint. Power is often mistaken for domination. Who speaks the loudest, moves the fastest, commands the most attention. But real power is quieter. It doesn't need to overwhelm. It doesn't need to declare itself. True power is revealed in restraint, the ability to hold back when you could push forward, to stay silent when you could speak, to wait when you could force. Restraint is not repression. It's not bottling things up. It's choosing when and how to express what matters most. It's knowing that just because you can doesn't mean you should. In a world obsessed with expression, restraint is a discipline. And discipline is strength under control. Stillness teaches restraint because it breaks the illusion that more effort always means more progress. You begin to realize that timing matters. That not every opportunity is meant to be seized. That not every thought is meant to be shared. Restraint honors the space between impulse and action. Think of a sculptor with a chisel. They don't attack the stone. They move with precision, removing only what doesn't belong. One wrong strike, and the whole piece fractures. Their art is not in how much they shape, but in what they choose not to touch. Restraint is the wisdom to know what to leave alone. In conflict, restraint diffuses escalation. In creativity, it refines focus. In leadership, it builds trust. When people see you operate from calm instead of compulsion, they trust your presence. You're not ruled by emotions or urgency. You're grounded. Clear. Capable of making decisions not from fear but from conviction. A famous proverb says, "Like a city whose walls are broken down is a person who lacks self-control." Restraint is your wall. Not to keep life out, but to keep your center intact. It creates boundaries that protect your energy, your clarity, your integrity. Without it, you become reactive, scattered, easily manipulated by circumstance. Modern culture doesn't celebrate restraint. It glorifies constant expression. Speak your mind. Say everything. Respond to everything. But when everything is said, the signal gets lost in the noise. Restraint doesn't mute your voice, it sharpens it. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. When you act less, your actions carry more intention. Consider martial arts again. The expert doesn't flail wildly. Their strength lies in stillness, in measured response. They don't waste energy. Every movement is deliberate. The restraint is not hesitation, it's calculation. That's what stillness cultivates in life. The ability to move with intention, not emotion. To say what needs to be said, and nothing more. Restraint is also how you conserve power. The lion doesn't chase every antelope. It waits. It watches. Its energy is stored, not squandered. That energy becomes precision. That precision becomes dominance, not by force, but by timing. The same principle applies in how you manage your time, your attention, your emotions. Restraint is the art of choosing what's worthy of your full presence. Letting go of the need to react, fix, explain, impress, this is not passivity. It is mastery. You begin to see that sometimes the greatest display of power is the choice not to act. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Stillness sharpens this skill. It rewires the reflex to fill space. It teaches you that silence doesn't equal absence. Sometimes it's the most honest presence of all. In restraint, you don't shrink. You rise, calm, composed, clear. Power isn't always in the strike. Sometimes it's in the hand that stays steady. Restraint is power under control. It refines focus, clarity, and intention. Stillness teaches you to act with precision, not compulsion. Choosing when not to act is often more powerful than reacting by default. Where are you spending energy reacting when restraint would serve you better? Pick one area where you usually over-explain, overshare, or overreact. Today, practice holding steady instead. Chapter 9. Silence as a Source of Clarity. Silence isn't empty. It's pregnant with truth. It holds what noise often hides, the quiet revelations, the subtle nudges, the wisdom that doesn't shout. In a world wired for volume, silence becomes both countercultural and deeply powerful. Not just the absence of sound, but the presence of something deeper. Most people avoid silence because it feels unfamiliar. In silence, there's no one applauding, no one affirming, no background buzz to distract from the discomfort. And that's exactly why silence matters. It forces you to listen, not outwardly, but inwardly. It calls you out of distraction and into discernment. Stillness without silence is just a pause in motion. But stillness with silence becomes sacred space. The kind where scattered thoughts settle. The kind where truth surfaces, not as a shout but as a whisper you didn't know you needed. Silence doesn't speak over you. It waits for you to stop speaking long enough to hear what's already been trying to reach you. A study conducted at Duke University found that 2 hours of silence per day led to the development of new brain cells in the hippocampus, the region associated with learning, memory, and emotion. Silence, in other words, is not just restful, it's regenerative. It sharpens the mind. It strengthens emotional processing. It heals. Silence also creates contrast. When everything is loud, nothing stands out. But in silence, the essential becomes visible. You start noticing what matters and what's just noise. You begin to feel when something resonates, not because someone told you to believe it, but because it aligns with the quiet truth inside you. Think of a snow globe. Shake it, and the world inside is chaos. But let it sit, and the particles begin to settle. Only then can you see clearly. Life is the same. As long as you're constantly shaking, scrolling, talking, reacting, your inner vision stays blurred. Silence settles the snow. People often fill silence to avoid vulnerability. Small talk replaces real conversation. Endless stimulation replaces self-reflection. But avoiding silence is often avoiding self. You can only know yourself when you're willing to be with yourself, unfiltered, unguarded, unaccompanied by noise. There's also courage in choosing silence. In a heated discussion, silence says you value peace over being right. In a noisy room, silence says your presence doesn't need performance. In a moment of confusion, silence invites clarity to arrive before action takes its place. Not all silence is absence. Some silence is strength. In the natural world, silence is survival. The predator is silent before it strikes. The prey is silent to remain unseen. The forest, in its silence, thrives. No chaos. Just presence. Just life happening beneath the surface. You don't hear a tree grow, but it does. Power, real power, rarely announces itself. It emerges in silence and proves itself in time. Practicing silence doesn't mean removing all sound. It means intentionally creating space where no one else's voice gets louder than your own inner knowing. It means turning off the stream of input long enough to hear your own intuition speak clearly. Because it will, if you let it. Silence doesn't give you answers. It gives you space to find them. It doesn't push you forward. It pulls you inward. And when clarity rises from that quiet place, it's not borrowed, it's not copied, and it's not loud. It's yours. The world has enough noise. Let silence be your teacher. Let it form in you the kind of clarity that no volume can produce. Silence isn't emptiness, it's space where clarity can rise. Avoiding silence often means avoiding your own truth. Regular silence deepens awareness, sharpens focus, and strengthens inner guidance. What is silence trying to say to you that noise keeps drowning out? Create a 10-minute window today with no music, conversation, or screens. Just sit. Listen. Observe what comes alive in the quiet. Chapter 10. Living aligned, not obligated. There comes a point when the weight of obligation becomes heavier than the task itself. You say yes out of guilt. You show up out of habit. You perform out of expectation. Over time, life becomes a list, not a calling. And your energy is spent not by the doing, but by the disconnection between what you're doing and who you are becoming. Stillness reveals the gap. It slows you down long enough to ask the harder question, not just asterisk what am I doing? But why am I doing it? Alignment begins there. It's not about quitting everything or living passively. It's about returning to your inner compass before you make another move. It's choosing to live from clarity, not compliance. Obligation comes from the outside. It wears the face of duty, responsibility, expectation. It often disguises itself as virtue. But when unexamined, it turns life into performance. You go through the motions, checking boxes while your soul disengages. Stillness interrupts that cycle. It invites you to listen inward, to separate noise from necessity, to ask, does this resonate with who I am, or am I just afraid to disappoint someone? Living aligned doesn't mean everything feels easy. It means everything feels true. It means your yes has weight because it's not automatic. Your no has integrity because it's grounded in self-respect. You stop saying yes just to keep peace and start saying yes where peace already lives. That shift changes the texture of your life. You move from obligation to ownership. Research from the University of California found that people who act from intrinsic motivation, meaning they do things aligned with their internal values, report higher levels of fulfillment and lower levels of burnout. The study confirms what stillness reveals: alignment is sustainable. Obligation is not. But living aligned requires courage. It often means disappointing people who have benefited from your silence, your overgiving, your compliance. It might mean releasing roles you've outgrown. It might mean redrawing boundaries that were never yours to carry. Stillness doesn't give you permission from others. It gives you permission from yourself. Think of a river. It doesn't flow according to man-made paths. It carves its own, bending and turning, but always moving in alignment with gravity. That's how your life can move, fluid but rooted, flexible but directed. Alignment doesn't resist life. It partners with it. It says, I'm not here to please everyone. I'm here to live fully, deeply, honestly. Stillness gives you the pause to notice when you're off track. It invites course correction without shame. You don't need a crisis to change. You just need clarity. And that clarity is often one quiet moment away. A moment where you stop and ask, what matters now, asterisk not what mattered before. Not what others expect. But what feels congruent with your values, your vision, your voice. Living aligned is not selfish. It's sacred. Because when you live from center, you serve from overflow, not obligation. You create from inspiration, not pressure. You engage from authenticity, not performance. The people around you may not understand at first, but they will feel the difference. Aligned energy carries a presence that can't be faked. You're not here to fulfill everyone's expectations. You're here to fulfill your purpose. And that requires discernment, not just discipline. Stillness makes space for that discernment. It clears out the noise of what you should do so you can remember what you're called to do. Let your life be a river, not a relay. Flow in your own rhythm. Trust your own path. Let alignment, not obligation, become the compass. Living from obligation leads to burnout. Living from alignment leads to peace. Stillness creates the space to question, choose, and redirect from within. Aligned decisions are not always easy, but they're always true. Where are you saying yes from fear instead of alignment? Today, pause before committing to anything. Ask, does this align with who I am becoming? Let that answer guide you. Chapter 11: Returning to Stillness. You began in stillness. Before the noise, before the roles, before the race, you simply were. Whole. Present. Unrushed. But somewhere along the way, motion became meaning. Noise became normal. And stillness became something you had to earn. But stillness was never a reward. It was always a return. This return isn't a retreat from life. It's a re-entry into it. It's the moment you stop sprinting towards significance and remember, you already carry it. It's the shift from proving to presence, from grasping to grounding. It's not about doing less. It's about being more in what you do. More aware. More awake. More aligned. Stillness doesn't ask you to escape your responsibilities. It invites you to meet them with a rooted spirit. It doesn't promise you a life without noise. It gives you the wisdom to move through noise without becoming it. It teaches you to hold space, to resist the compulsion to react, to move only when movement matters. In stillness, you remember that life is not a competition, it's a communion. With yourself. With the present moment. With the deeper current underneath your circumstances. You begin to see how often rushing created detours, how often silence had answers, how often presence was the power you were searching for elsewhere. None of this happens by accident. Stillness must be chosen. Cultivated. Practiced. It lives in your breath, your boundaries, your pauses. It hides in the moments you resist reaching for your phone. It grows in the seconds you hold your response instead of releasing your reaction. It waits for you in the quiet, never demanding, but always ready to guide. You won't always feel peaceful when you practice stillness. Some days, the quiet will confront you. It will surface what busyness helped you avoid. But that is part of the gift. Stillness doesn't erase what's hard, it reveals what's real. And only when something is seen clearly can it be transformed deeply. The paradox remains: when you stop chasing, you gain direction. When you let go of force, you gain flow. When you stop performing, you regain presence. And when you return to stillness, you remember the power that was never outside of you, it was simply buried beneath the noise. Look at the mountain. It doesn't move, yet it shapes weather. Look at the tree. It doesn't chase the sun, yet it grows toward light. Stillness is not inactivity. It's alignment with truth. It's choosing depth over display. It's allowing your roots to grow even when the surface seems still. The world will keep spinning fast. It will keep shouting for your attention. But you don't have to match its pace. You can live in rhythm with something older, truer, and wiser. The quiet current beneath the chaos. The pulse of peace within the storm. This is not a one-time choice. It is a daily return. A breath. A moment. A remembering. That you don't need to do more to be more. That you don't need to chase what you already carry. That the most powerful thing you can do in a world obsessed with movement is to be still and fully alive. Let stillness be your anchor. Let it become your rhythm. Let it guide your steps, slow your mind, and settle your soul. You're not falling behind. You're returning home. Stillness is not a retreat from life, it's a return to your truest way of living. Presence, peace, and clarity are not achieved by striving, but by slowing down. The power you seek isn't in more doing, it's in deeper being. What would it look like to live from stillness instead of chasing it? Begin and end your day with 1 full minute of stillness. No task. No input. Just you and the breath. Let it be enough. Take care and be well.